lifted. And until they're lifted, what has happened is you're starting.
Okay, so those sanctions on Cuba, they apparently are now starting to be lifted, right?
No, they have not been lifted. And until they're lifted, what has happened is you're starting to have civilized conversations between the United States government and the Cuban government. But until the blockade is lifted, as Comandante Raul Castro has eloquently stated, just like his late brother Comandante Fidel Castro eloquently stated, until the blockade is lifted, it will be an uphill battle for Cuba to be able to maximize potential, serving the needs, interests, and aspirations of the Cuban people, and consequently the same thing for the Zimbabwean people.
Because of the sanctions on Cuba, they, necessity is the mother of invention, is a saying we hear, and they've developed a remarkable medical program, many doctors in Cuba, and they now have some patents and things on cures, and in the area of even lung cancer, they have some treatments and some potential cures. What's the latest on that? Because that sounds quite fascinating.
Comandante Fidel Castro always said that their doctors were their greatest army, not their guerrilla fighters who went to Angola and fought side by side with our people in Angola for 14 years, not the guerrillas that fought in Guinea-Bissau or Mozambique. And because they have the most advanced gerontology program in the world, the fact they have the lowest infant mortality rate in the world, the fact they have the lowest HIV/AIDS rate in the world, their doctors represent what they stand behind, making sure that people have the best medical care there that the world has to offer. And we see the 4,000 doctors they have on the African continent. You know about the Operation Project Miracle, which has restored eyesight to many people on the verge of going blind in Venezuela, and just what they've done all over the world. Their doctors are angelic, the way they approach medicine. And finally, the Latin American School of Medical Sciences, where they've been offering since 2000 500 scholarships to so-called African Americans to go there and return to the poorest communities in this country to be the best doctors those countries have ever had at their disposal, or those communities rather.
And now it's interesting to compare and contrast the two systems in the U.S. and in Cuba. And in the U.S., the idea is that communism could not possibly generate something like world-class doctors and medical cures and pharmaceutical cures, and only capitalism can do this. And yet that's false in this case. We're seeing that in communist system in Cuba has generated this remarkable medical program. What do people get wrong about all this?
Well, I think it's just a classic example of a meteorologist giving you the wrong weather forecast. And I think it's just a question for the so-called African American. We look at it this way. In 1896, we had to create the National Medical Association because we were not allowed to join the American Medical Association. They thought that we belonged on the cotton fields and tobacco fields, picking cotton and picking tobacco from sun up to sundown. A few years later, W.E.B. Du Bois does a study called the called The Physique and Health of the Negro American. And then Booker T. Washington starts Negro Health Month. So we've been fighting for quality medical representation since the turn of the 20th century. We still don't have it. The paradigm in this country is that healthcare is a privilege, not a right, and education is a privilege, not a right. So the fact that you have a country 90 miles from Florida where we were enslaved, where we cut sugarcane from sun up to sundown, and now that country has the best healthcare the world has to offer and has the best education the world has to offer, you can call it poetic justice or irony in the highest expression of that concept.
Well, here we are in Washington. You live in Washington. And let me kind of shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
I was very interested in how, in the campaign of Bernie Sanders, who's a socialist, so you can say he's, would have sympathies with, let's say, a communism, socialism. They're certainly more in the same camp than pure capitalism. And he was a civil rights fighter in the 60s, arm in arm with the 60s civil rights marchers. And yet the black